Hello everyone and welcome back to Challengers Northern Europe Polaris. This is the final map of the final series of this evening and we have in fact gone the distance. Human Tripwires and HSDIRR both making a good case for themselves in this series with two incredibly dominant maps of their own choosing. Now we go to that more neutral ground of Breeze where I have really no idea what to expect.
Yeah, and again, it sort of is going to be that similar tale that we had on Pearl. Human Tripwires never before really seen this map from their side in terms of the split of Polaris. On the other hand, HSDIRR, we know what they like to play on Breeze. They played it up against Bonk. They won up against Bonk 39. And I hate to tell you, if you're a fan of Human Tripwires and hoping that they're going to come out with a win, Cypher was included in that composition. And so it's highly likely, I'd say about 99% possibility, that Cypher is going to continue to pop up in their composition today.
Yeah, we're seeing the return of that Moroccan man indeed, and I don't know, man, Cypher, I think it's nice to have him back inside the meta a little bit more, have these Sentinel players have more opportunities to actually be playing in teams rather than it just be Chamber on every single map, irrespective of the outcome. Breeze, even during the dark days when we had Chamber on most maps, still was an argument to be had for bringing in a Cypher there, and we even saw it played by FPX, for example, on their final against Paper X, way back when in Copenhagen. So, like big teams in big games still picking it up. And yeah, this one, perhaps not the same gravity, but still, I think in terms of it being a maybe mid-table clash, both of these teams making a real effort to try and get to playoffs could do wonders if Human Tripwires were to take this one. And for HSDIRR, it just cements that position they've already established early on.
Well, that's the composition that we expected coming out from HSDIRR. This is literally the composition that they ran up against Bonk, Sky included, over that KO. Human Tripwires, on the other hand, this is the first time this split we're getting to see them field a composition for Breeze, and Polvi is running out on the Reyna. So yet again, they are going to be doubling up on those duelist roles. They saw how effective it was on Haven in trying to narrow down the focus to specific areas that HSDIRR had to try and concentrate on, and they're going to try and do it again. The thing is, Reyna is a little bit more self-sufficient than the Phoenix, right? You use the layers. She's even had a little bit of changes in terms of patch notes to make sure that she gets more value selfishly, which is canonically in character with her personality, as opposed to the rest of her team being able to use it as a platform the way that you used to, where she was sort of used as an initiator in terms of something like a KO or a breach for a Jet to be able to use those layers and Ferrari peek a corner.
Yeah, I think one of the main differences between Reyna and Phoenix is the fact that if you're not having a good day and you're playing Phoenix, there's still a lot of passive value that you can bring, whereas Reyna will be heavily reliant on Polvi actually being able to bring the kills necessary, and he's done it the last couple of maps, but this is where the pressure really rises, as already that duelist pairing yet again will look to inject themselves into HSDIRR by taking some elbow control, but they've got to be fully aware of this, and that they are. Lear takes both kills, and that's the green light for them to now hit towards B.
Yeah, Cloudburst comes on through, very quickly followed up by that dash as Lear enters onto side. Ali is felled by the shock dart. It still don't have full control at the moment, Tunnel being a little bit problematic on that entry, but Lear is set all the way in the backside. Wants to check whether or not there's a Cypher camera. It is. Stanley is on that particular agent. However, Lynxy and Lear both working together. They may begin with L's, but it's absolute W's for this team heading into this first round of Breezes. They take pistols and set themselves up to take the second round, especially because Vicious already has a Bulldog and Lear has put up into a Vandal. This team is not slowing down anytime soon.
Lear definitely feeling himself coming into this game and has had a great series as a whole. Just such a consistent player on that jet role. Many times you'll see, players go quiet for a game or two, but think back to Haven, the first map that we had, he was still firing off shots despite the fact that they ended up losing by such a heavy margin. And now with a Vandal in hand, yeah, that's one that you want to be keeping onto, and already Eccles gets a look at it, albeit from a distance.
Well, it is going to be Toxin Screen and Viper anchored towards A for Human Tripwires. The rest Gamble stacked up towards the B. As Polvi is there with that Marshal, but isn't going to have anyone to shoot into. It's HSDIRR are pushing towards that A site. It is going to be Guiding Light and Hunter Drone used in tandem to make sure that they're able to pin down this Viper's position. They want this toxin screen out of the way and they want it gone now.
Oh, big recon to light those players up, but could have been dealt with a little bit later because there wasn't anyone to capitalize. Finally, the troops arrive, and Devo's able to claim a kill. So too is Fredden, but it's Ale here to sweep them off their feet, and there we have it. HSDIRR take it. It is a lol Ale W, and HSDIRR now moving into the bonus. Yeah, they keep that Vandal most importantly.
So this is always a sort of trump card for the Viper that uses the toxin screen second. Right? You get the opportunity to see where the other Viper places their toxin screen, and then in one of the pettiest moves possible, you get to place yours like a meter in front, so you have all of the control of that specific angle, and it does such a good job of cutting off the reinforcements as human Tripwires try and reposition and rotate from B towards the A to cash in on the members of HSDIRR as they move out from cave onto site.
A scary sight for Epps as 4 players come barreling towards him up the zip line. Hasn't actually seen it, only hears it and, you know, somewhat tries to work off the back of the recon there as he takes 1 kill. Lear immediately trades and already has the backside control that they've been looking for, but they've also conceded through double doors as a result. But the kills are good. There are weapons that can be reclaimed here as the retake is coming in now fully from the defender's spawn side out on the beach. And, well, human Tripwires, they're not on the beach just yet. HSDIRR giving them a real run for their money. And Epps now with Vandal in hand has a chance. But how many times does it feel like I've said that and it's not amounted to anything whatsoever? Nice recon in, back turned, and that's exactly where he gets put. Nicely done from Lynxy. And HSDIRR convert their bonus.
Hey, just doing a very good job of just sending Lear careening into the back of A so quickly that human Tripwires almost take a second step back. They're so surprised by that jet being so close to them that quickly that, again, they lose a lot of control onto that site. Yes, they do have double doors control. However, HSDIRR have site control. They've got the spike down, and it very quickly spirals away from human Tripwires as they have to peek 1 versus 2 into members of HSDIRR who were set up into bait positions, as we're going to hear a very early activation of the Bladestorm coming on out from Lear, punishing the fact that human Tripwires don't really have a Bladestorm to match. In fact, all they have to rely on at the moment for any potential of first blood really is Epps with this Marshal trying to hold court over that A site and not allow HSDIRR to get in as quickly as they have previously.
We're just playing off the shoulder of Polvi with the Sheriff, the one that has to deal the killing blows, and that burst not doing much, and eventually just dashes away towards the safety of the site itself. Lear has a pair of knives, something which I think Devo would have liked on this round, but no chance. It's flawless. You expect that from HSDIRR, perhaps not to the extent that all 5 players are left remaining, but for the round to be fairly simplistic. This is now where I can start to get worried for human Tripwires if things don't go their way. We've seen Polvi pick up the Reyna. It needs to start delivering some value on this defender's side, I think, but how do you activate it? This is the main question I feel that is going to be problematic, because, you know, maybe I'm a little more recency bias into the fact that not only HSDIRR won the previous map, but it was a dominant one. Once they have that read, they've looked so good, and for you to mix it up and get something here from Polvi, it's going to be a difficult task.
Well, Seeker is going to make it even harder, and it is actually going to force out the Hunter's Fury from human Tripwires.
Ooh,
trying to catch onto the positions of Lynxy's, and it does pay off for human Tripwires. However, they don't have mid control at the moment. Fredden will be able to push forward and find 1. Hasn't quite been able to convert that kill into being able to push through into double doors or onto Epps' position, slowing things a little bit down for this attacking side. But ultimates have run out for human Tripwires. Oh, that's a gorgeous shock dart to catch onto the position of Stanley. The Cypher had absolutely no way of being able to escape that, and it is going to trigger that neural theft to come through and immediately ping on out every other member of human Tripwire's location. It's just it, even though it's a 2 versus 3. With that intel, they think they can take them. Fredden's been able to cut out Polvi on the rotation off of the information picked out by the ultimate, and he takes it into a 1v1. Suddenly this is winnable, but Eccles through mid, and double doors control will be able to deal with Redden. Breathes a big sigh of relief as human Tripwires are off the starting blocks.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing, right? They've got themselves now into the driving seat, and maybe not so much the driving seat, but they've taken a hold of the wheel and now they're starting to go somewhere, right? Wherever that destination is, yet to be seen. Fredden does make it costly, but they can still reinvest. There are guns here. At the very least, they'll have light shields and a Vandal of sorts to help them out. There's actually a couple of Phantoms in the mix. Stanley on the Cypher, perhaps one that you would expect, and as well, Eccles playing off the back of his util, also being an anchor towards A.
Drone checks the angle. Lear knows that there is presence towards Hall. Has the operator if they really want to try and contest it. As Ebbs decides to step away. Again, Toxin screens both placed in very similar positions, but it is going to be Vicious as just a step ahead of human Tripwires. If they're able to get their way out from Cave, they will be able to try and push onto the side and catch out those members rotating, but Devo with the Guardian takes Alley down the distance. Going to do so much work for that particular gun. Not allowing HSD the clean entrance to get past their Toxin screen that they're looking for.
I mean, Breeze is one of those maps which can sometimes come down to raw aim if it ends up playing like that. It certainly feels like that way quite a lot, and Polvi proves my point exactly by finding an isolated duel onto Fredden in mid. Right now, human Tripwires winning all of their individual fights, and HSDIRR not really making much of a collective effort to actually hit the site. Vicious, the next one to fall. No more toxic screen from which they can make this siege happen. And Lear on the operator isn't really going to be your best bet at finding a way through, because you've got to chase into these angles which have some cross sight lines already posted up.
Yeah, it's interesting as well that they're making conscious decisions not to really group push onto those sites, and a large part of it, I feel, is impact of this Reyna pick from Polvi. Reyna gets a lot of power when she's able to find a kill, but goes exponentially more powerful if she's in an outnumbered fight. You find one kill, you convert it either into the overhealing or the dismiss, and that sets you up to be able to win the second and very quickly snowball from one body to the next to a full group decimation. And I think HSDIRR are more than aware of that potential, and they just don't want to group up as a result. And it's costing them. Sometimes they're winning these sort of isolated pocket duels, but for the most part it's paid off for human Tripwires.
Yeah, carrying forward this trend of the attack operator, one which I know Luzzer as well, being a fellow compatriot, likes to try and play. We always see him getting aggressive on the jet from attack, and you know, it has its merits. You just need to isolate those fights. Right now, he's looking to see if there's going to be any kind of an overstep, but human Tripwires have, you know, flexed this defense from being a bit more aggressive through Polvi and mid to, you know, sitting back quite happily. He's just trying to buy a timing right now in Nest, and it looks as if we might see that first peak come through, and there it is. One onto Lynxy, initiation gone. Very happy to just back away from this and take the numbers. Yeah,
Lear as well. Ironically stops Lear from being able to peek and try and punish that Reyna set up in Nest with the operator, as Lear now has to move straight back to the angle in you, and you can see that Polvi is dancing around, wanting to see whether or not Lear reveals themselves by walking just a couple of meters further forward and showing the jets back to the duelist. As it does look like it is going to be a B push, 29 seconds left on the clock. HSD have to commit! And it is going to be a pick onto Stanley.
Yeah.
Ali is able to find that Cypher, but Polvi has split the operator. Lear, however, reads the Reyna's chase and anticipates the oppression. Will be able to come out on top because of it, but Devo's still alive with the Vandal, deals with Fredden. And that has been the difference maker for HSD in so many of these retakes.
Yeah, there we have it. In the post plant, Lear will sure things up with the operator. More than anything, it's a ribbon on the top of things. Unlucky for Stanley to then point his crosshair down to the feet of Ale just as he was moving into the choke and activating the cyber cage. But there we have it. I'm expecting this to be a human Tripwires timeout, and as we fade to black and white, it is in fact. Nice kills, you know, good for Polvi to find that first kill in towards mid. Doesn't really look for anything else additional until we see Lear posted in the corner, but yeah, into the retake, they just didn't win out the fights, I think, more than anything else. It is coming down to a lot of these duels, 1v1s taken on every single corner. And I think that's one of the reasons why, you know, a lot of pro players aren't the biggest fan of this map as a whole, why it's been floated, why it is our decider here. And right now, HSDIRR seem to be doing the better job of it.
Yeah, Polvi is able to find that first blood, yes. However, he is kept occupied by having to keep Lear in check, and Lear gets a lot more value out of that position than Polvi does, because Polvi is the Reina. You have that Lear. If you can try and connect that Lear onto the members of HSDIRR as they move from main onto site, you give your team the opportunity to be able to catch on to them when they are blinded. Lear on the Jet with the op still gets to say in the fight, if human Tripwires try and contest HSDIRR walking forward onto site, he just has to worry about Polvi potentially popping up on the sidelines, whereas Polvi is taken out of the fight entirely. And they get so much value being able to push virtually for free onto the B side as a result of just the Reina's lack of absence.
Another key round for human Tripwires to try and find. Lose this and HSDIRR can really break away on the attacking side, as Lear already is taking a different approach in towards mid. This time Elbow is the first point of contact, and Epps immediately reads into that and has the ping from the drone to confirm it. A nice double swing in out towards tunnel from Eccles and Polvi. Slow things down. Freden's already moved in, but it may be too late before he's even involved in the action. The duelists coming to life for human Tripwires and getting the round when they needed it most.
Yeah, Devo coming in with a real clutch Blade Storm, and Polvi hitting those shots necessary. They will be able to take the round for human Tripwires and start to close up the distance, both in terms of economy and round differential. And it was definitely a round that they needed to be able to take. HSDIRR were looking like they might be able to just run away, and even if they lost a round at some point, their economy would be so assured already that they would just be able to full buy right off the bat in the next round. And Devo decides now is the time to pick the operator up once again. We've seen it in the hands of Lear to try and find value in mid. Now we're going to see the monopoly of the op on the defensive side.
Yeah, it's a couple of times now that we've seen HSDIRR go for this slow contact up into an execute, a la bringing the Seekers online nice and early. Could be good for a late round, but it seems as if most of this is just going to be in towards the choke of A, as Lear's the first one through, dashes into the mid-sight, flicks to Stanley and connects a beautiful shot. Out come the Seekers now to give him a little more to bite down on, and he will with his full set of teeth, tearing them apart limb for limb, and that's his work done. As a duelist, sometimes you've only got to be the space maker, but he's taken it with him, and there's a Viper's Pit now to consolidate their efforts within the site itself.
It's so hard for Devo as well through that Viper's Pit to find any information on where to fire that up. Guiding Light makes it even harder. Epps unfortunately not going to be able to look away. Recon Bolt comes on through, trying to give Devo a little bit more information to play with, but he gets too close. And the Bulldog and Vandal take the two players down. And it is going to be HSDIRR walking away with such a costly round for human Tripwires. They knew that the operator would likely be in play for the defensive. They saved the Viper's Pit, the Seekers to be able to brute force their way, the neural theft off of the body that they drop on entrance to the site, meaning that Devo doesn't get the time to use the op and keep them hesitantly waiting and just really tiptoeing from cave onto that A site, dropping a lot of utility to make sure the op doesn't take one of their heads off as they move in. And as a result, human Tripwires, if they lose this next round, they're going to be on the force. Their economy is going to be on such hard times because, again, they've bought the op.
Look at this setup, though, from the two duelist players. Yet again, I feel like a broken record when I mention their names, but it's a dynamic duo which has been played time and time again. The only angle not accounted for would be the one that Polvi's holding. Each of them an effective 1 versus 1, but you have to favour the operator, of course, on the deeper cave angle. Gets it irrespective, and That's one half of your initiation gone yet again, this time Ale. And now you've got to be looking towards Lynxy with his owl drone to break through a pit from human tripwires, one of their own, to consolidate B control.
That's a nasty trapwire as well coming out, because Stanley gives away the fact that they had pushed through that Viper's pit and now have to backtrack. All the while, a lot of time is being burnt away for the side of HSD. They will be able to group up. They should be able to punish human tripwires for the fact that that Sova and the Rainer are still a little bit far away from the contact, but Stanley's able to find Lear. And the trapwire is now going to make it even harder for the team to be able to push through this Viper's pit. That's still up. They know that Eccles is in the middle of it. They have to be for the ultimate to have lasted this long, but they just have no pushing power without Lear or Ale. No flashes to be able to enter onto the site. Lear not able to dash past and create a distraction large enough for the rest of the members to walk forward. They find one kill, but they don't have the time nor the site controls to be able to land the spike, and human tripwires have locked Breeze down entirely.
It certainly feels that way. Very overkill with the Cypher utility and Viper util in towards the B choke there, but really nicely done. I also like for Fredden to move up close when he hears the owl drone coming to cover for Eccles so that he doesn't have to leave the pit, so there's no chance of getting pinged and immediately pressured. Simply from that now, we're within 2, and human tripwires here only realistically need one more round, or best case scenario 2, to make this half look very healthy coming into an attack where once again they've got both of those duelists to work with and create something.
They've sown the seeds of discord as well on the side of HSDIRR. Look at the positioning that they're taking. Now they're not grouped up through shop. Now they know that they have to push all the way through cave to make sure Polvy's not on that off angle.
Oh, Lear going up high and mighty, trying to find this engagement towards backside, but his teammates will do it instead. A flurry of pings light up those players on the opposite side of the smoke. Glow in the dark almost, as Polvy takes one and is able to dismiss away. Such a pivotal kill, and his disengagement even bigger almost in that regard, because they're only a player down. Devo tagging away even more damage, but HSDIRR fight back for this one. Devo, I don't think, is going to any longer and will want to keep this into the next, but yeah, just looking back at the credits, he is actually, in fact, the only one with 2 feet to stand on when it comes to economy, so we'll probably be giving a few handouts to his teammates come the final round of the half.
Yeah, especially because he does not have the Bladestorm to work with, nor are human tripwires running that chamber. And they won't really have all of the firepower or anything to cause HSDIRR hesitation in this next round if they don't still have that operator, and that is exactly what Devo is going to be looking to hold on to. I like the fact that HSDIRR, they're not actually trying to push onto the op aggressively. They don't want to potentially lose out one of their members if they do get a little bit too forward in their search for the jet, and as a result they will survive. They will keep all of those rifles on the board, and for human tripwires, yeah, it's not the greatest of buys, but it is only temporary because all of their money is going to be reset into the next round.
Looking at the setup here, HSDIRR want to just keep slamming their head against the wall of A to try and break through, it seems. Another fast push potentially. Fast in the sense that once they're at the choke, they'll go, but yet again, just contacting up to try and collect as much information as possible. Devo's going to be out on an island, even with 1 kill here, it feels, but no, able to dash away. Lear trades tailwinds to go searching for additional firepower and damage, and does it. One onto Eccles, a few more pings back and forth, and there's still not much found. Human Tripwire is actually comfortable here. They do need to deal with Lear, who is up close and has found one. Needs to ace clutch if it is to happen for them, but it won't. 7-5, only a deficit of 2 rounds. Human Tripwire's actually very nice for them on their defender's side.
It really is going to come down to who of these teams is faster at adapting into what the other is playing. Human Tripwires, we've seen on the attacking halves, when they're running double duelists, it is to absolute devastating effect. But likewise, we've seen HSDIRR running that Cypher on defense to absolute devastating effect. It is very much unmovable object, unstoppable force, which is going to win out. Human Tripwires down 2 rounds would love to be able to walk away with pistols in second round as a result after. And HSDIRR likewise would love to be able to widen that gap. It really is going to come down to this round in terms of deciding who is going to have an easier time in the remaining half of this series.
Well, it's not going to be 5 frenzies this time around, as Human Tripwires are trailing on their attack side of the half for the second map in a row, but it feels different. The tone is not the same as it was on Breeze, and Polvi is just feeling so confident right now. He wants to pick apart this team piece by piece, and if Devo can't do it, then he'll be the one to follow things up. Fredden here in mid gets the headshot, but not the kill. The raid boss survives a little longer. No overheal available, but they've got all the B-site control you could really ask for. Eccles does want to move out into the open to get that plant, however, and they aren't aware of the fact that there are 2 players moving in now from the flank, so it is just a tap. Finally, the wide peek comes through. Ep's there to back up Eccles, but they're kind of stuck here towards the site, and Polvi going chasing towards Nest hasn't helped out the numbers that they've got to work with. This is such a weird situation that Human Tripwires have placed themselves in, as Stanley gets headshotted by Ale. Both remaining players low, but so is Epps, and that headshot now finally connecting means that HSDIRR have managed to turn around, which didn't really look like it belonged to them.
The problem for Human Tripwires is that flank. They're not expecting those players to pop up from window, and as a result, they get stuck in this really awkward position where one of them has to wide peek, one of them has to go for the spike plant, and Ali is able to find both.
Yeah. And they just waited as well. There was no desire to get across the site quickly. I mean, perhaps Eccles could have swung the whole way back around just to get towards that side, but there was a lack of information more than anything else from which they could look to mold that setup, and it was the downfall of them in the end. They were left with their hands tied to make a decision, and now it's just pistols. But we've seen them come to life before. Nice cam from Fredden playing off the back of the wall here. It is pistol versus pistol, and Polvi has got a 6-shooter, one which is going to claim his life and bring them down to a spike plant this time around, and another kill maybe. He's not done just yet.
Well, no hesitation this time. Spike is down for Human Tripwires, and HSD are going to be walking against that clock. And the Marshal is there for Lear. The space not really to be able to push forward, but Ali has been able to move forward with the Spectre. Here's the Empress coming through from Polvi. He thinks that he can turn this around, and unfortunately all he finds is a Bulldog for his efforts. Epps extraordinarily low is finally taken down by the Marshal, and HSD, it looked brutal for the team at the beginning. Human Tripwires got that first kill on the entrance, had the spike planted. But it's Allah coming to absolute life with the Spectre that breathes oxygen into HSD's lungs and allows them to come out of the round.
Yeah, before we knew that Polvi had gone back to duelist rather than initiator, perhaps the head-to-head we should have been looking for was Polvi versus Lear, because I mean, look at the use of the Empress here. It's so selfish, but that's exactly how you're supposed to play Reyna, and I love the hope that they're willing to throw something like that ultimate at the round to give a chance. It doesn't combine excellently well with a Sheriff, but I mean, it's something, right? Now they have a buy and a significant advantage in terms of weaponry to what HSDIRR confront here. You lose this round and suddenly things aren't looking anywhere near as good as they had.
It's very much go big or go home for Human Tripwires, and unfortunately they don't have the Empress to be able to make that Vandal really work, and Lear, even if the was still online, is going to take out both of the duelists. Human Tripwires, unfortunately, absolutely decimated as they cross into the Jet's crosshairs. And now it's going to be a 3 versus 5, 50 seconds left. The Spike has to make a move onto this A site. They have next to no information. Recon Bolt comes on through, reveals Vicious. Shooting to try and take it down is going to trigger a follow-up shock dart to push that Viper out of position. And Epps is able to turn it into a kill, but Liz able to turn it around onto Eccles. 2 versus 1. Suddenly, Stanley invests the neural theft. This is winnable for Human Tripwires. Lynxie's going to be spotted out. Their location is pinned down, but with the Guardian, they take down Epps, they take down Stanley. And with 30 health remaining, they take the round.
You could almost see it happening, though, with those players on low HP, Guardian in hand. The positioning towards stairs, a notoriously difficult one to challenge at times, but as soon as Lear is able to take away the duo on those duelist roles, I think it's fair to say at times human tripwires have looked somewhat toothless without them. So you have to give plenty of credit still to Epps and Stanley for, you know, twisting that one around and giving a chance for human tripwires to do something there. But this game now starts to feel like it's running away from them.
Yeah, this is the problem for human tripwires, right? When you look at the position of Devo and Polvi, because they were playing like they did on Haven, where they played a Jet and a Phoenix, but we've already covered that Reyna's utility at the moment is far more selfish than the Phoenix. You don't have that sort of buddy dynamic that you had in the previous map, and I would far prefer to see Polvi playing further afield away from Devo so that human tripwires get more angles. If they'd had 2 angles to push onto Lear, the Jet wouldn't have known where to fire, where to look, and you could have found that kill and found the backstab that rotation had been looking to set up. As it is, you lose your 2 duelists, and as you said, there is no bite to the bark of the initial push until human tripwires make magic happen with a couple of kills on their side.
Yeah, I don't know, magic doesn't exactly grow on trees, right? It's not something that they can just try and pull out every single round. Lear will attempt to create some magic of his own, as it seems this guy has a magician's cap and a wand of sorts when those blade storms get involved, but right now it's a fast execute from human tripwires. They've tried to bring in what they can. Eccles immediately looking to get the spike planted, but it would instead plant a 50 caliber bullet in the head of Fredden and clean off his hat of sorts. That time the Cypher Brim, and here is Lear. Late to the party, but always the noisiest one in the mix, and maybe this time for the wrong reasons. Human tripwires bailing themselves out with an escape rope. The 2 duelists, like you mentioned, they play quite selfishly for themselves in the way that the utility works, but as a group, human tripwires look so solid. Vicious does have a battering ram to try and cut this one apart, however, and already picked up 2 kills for himself. Lynxy 1v2 this time, no mistake is made. Human tripwires close that gap.
Oh, this series is a nail biter. It really is.
Yep.
And it's so close, even though with 4 rounds difference, 1 slip up from HSDIRR in terms of this current round, and their economy is gone, and human tripwires turning things around are able to claw those rounds back, and we suddenly find themselves in the reality of a 10-10, maybe even an overtime on Breeze.
I mean, just as we thought this one might be wrapping up sooner rather than later with that bonus conversion, human tripwires give us a reason to believe that it might be a later bedtime than usual. Early presence in towards mid, but now shifting on towards B. HSDIRR have read this cover to cover, as it feels like at times they have done in terms of what human tripwires' approach has been. Just queuing up outside the choke, and you see the timer of the dash. You know that this is no fake. In comes Devo, straight past Vicious, who's run out of stinger bullets to try and challenge with, but Liz posted up, Sheriff in hand, still working to get miracles done, but not quite happening for them. Human tripwires collapsing upon the site, and this Aleph flank will have to be something ridiculous to reach the kind of level that it did earlier the series.
Yeah, unfortunately the flank a little bit too late to the party. Guiding light, nothing but pretty confetti sputtering out as HSDIRR arrive with Ale. Unfortunately,
they know about
not
it
really
this time as well.
Forward. Yep.
The setup is there. It wasn't last time. There's 3 players waiting for contact, and they don't even have to peek. Stanley takes it. That's now us within 3.
That's that adaptation. It's a little bit late in the game, but it's there, and it allows human tripwires to be expecting when they see that Sky's absent. They know there's probably the reason why they decide to go when they do, because that rotation takes time to set up, and they want to move before the Sky is in position to use those guiding lights to stunt any momentum that human tripwires Jet and Reyna can push forward to get them out and onto B site, and it works out like a dream.
I think the HSDIRR players will be looking a little bit like that bear we saw in the hole if they're not able to bring this one over the line with how things look to be going, and that puts you in a bad mood if you're Lear. Evs with a very nice shot through the side of the wall to open us up. That's the duelist gone. That's what HSDIRR had been playing through outlet-wise for quite a few rounds. When the aggression dries up, where do you go? Yeah, they have the Cypher and the Viper to drop back on the same way that we saw Human Tripwires do it on their defense, but you're at a player deficit, and yeah, you've not got an ult either.
It puts so much pressure as well on reading out your opponent, because the Jet, now that we don't really have Chamber in the mix, is that floating agent who moves between the sites and parts of the map. Now, if you fall for a fake, it's going to be so much more detrimental to the long term of the series, because you're just not going to be there in time for the rotation, either to cut them off from that spike plant or to find the kills. As Hunter's Fury comes on through, they have no choice. They think it's an A push, and they have to use the Hunter's Fury in case it's a fake.
Look at the confidence, just pushing towards backside, taking as much control as is necessary. And I spoke of having Viper ultimates to hold things down earlier on. There's now one more for Human Tripwires to consolidate the site. Devo looking to buy a timing on Alec, gets it very nicely done. It's another Lynxy 1v2. He's at about 50% for it at this point in time, and would have to pump those numbers up if there's any chance. The wild spray through the smoke hardly inspires confidence.
Recon's
Not
gonna be
really
good, though.
Much reason to be saving. The recon, yeah, it helps, but even in the Viper's pit, you have that proximity, which then suddenly becomes a factor where even if you're dropping it right in the middle of the pit, someone can be stood a few meters away and it's still not scan them. And yeah, it's a half chance in the end. Human Tripwires now 2 away, and this is an eco.
Doing a very good job as well as making sure that they're not all stacked in that Viper's pit on the off chance that the Sova just sprays through and catches both of them. They've learned the lessons of today's series. Make sure you have split angle control if you know that someone's going to peek you. As a very early Viper's pit comes on through from HSD. This is really the only choice that they have on their defense. Cordon off one of these sites, or push Human Tripwires if they want to take A into having control of holes. If they want to walk through that Viper's pit, that's when those pistols and that Stinger is going to have the biggest amount of bite to their name. And as a result, Human Tripwires, not wanting to walk into that snare, have to take the long round. This is going to bite into their time bank significantly. You know what else is going to bite into them? Fredden, because he's waiting. He sees the gun barrel. He knows that they're there. He finds one.
What is all that he's able to get in the end? The backside control, something which we've seen Human Tripwires do multiple times. They're called Human Tripwires for a reason. If they were called Truman's Trip Hires, then they would be heading to the other site. That's a nice little Freudian slip that I had before the broadcast, so I'm glad that I've made use of it somehow. But yeah, HSDIRR wanting to make this retake happen. Few decent weapons. They're really just lynching off the back of that control that you've got here in main, because now Lear can just get to work and do what it is he needs to open things up, and it's absolutely ridiculous. He sits atop the pyramid to find his third and sits atop the server time and time again when he logs in, because this guy is just a different breed, honestly.
There's a ghost of Fredden as well, just haunting Human Tripwires, because yes, he only finds one in holes, but that one is enough to drop a rifle, and that rifle then makes its way into Lear's hands. And from there, it's just clean, clinical, good mechanical prowess. Lear moves like stepping stones from person to person and dispatches the entirety of Human Tripwires' remains, and takes HSDIRR another round up, denying Human Tripwires the chance to try and equalize that distance.
It is champagne Valorant from Lear. Really brilliant stuff, and they might want to hold off on the champagne for just a moment. Human Tripwires putting their best foot forward to try and open things up here, and it's those same two pesky individuals on the scene. It's like Scooby-Doo when they unmask the villain, and it's Polvy and Devo every single time. They've got control of the site, but we know the retake to be potent from HSDIRR. Have to see if that materializes to something on this occasion, and instead the ghost of Cypher this time around is Stanley. and maybe leaving a kill or two in his will before parting.
Well, they may just be getting away with it because that meddling Jet Lear is out of the equation. HSDIRR are running without a duelist at this point in time, and with that spike planted, they don't really have a way of safely initiating into that site. Stanley with that long flank finally is able to make it work. Vicious is taken down, isn't even able to save that rifle. And we have to keep the references rolling just a little bit longer, has it? Because this series continues. Human Tripwires, every single time it feels like they're just on the back foot. Devo's able to come in with a Blade Storm, Polvy's able to pick up an absolute Hail Mary of bullets with a rifle, and suddenly this series reignites.
Yeah, now HSDIRR bringing this one into a timeout, talking things over, how they want to approach it. Lear leading the way in the server with 26 kills. Polvy not so far behind, 20 of his own and a similar amount of deaths. All across the board, it looks fairly even. The only difference, I guess you could maybe say, was Eccles on that controller role. But then again, like we said, he's playing the IGL. It can sometimes, put a little bit more pressure on you to be making those calls. And we've seen some, decent adjustments from Human Tripwires so far. Now with a bit of downtime of their own to talk things over, what do you expect both of these teams to bring out? What is the win condition here for Human Tripwires? Because it's very on and off with how they've been picking up these rounds.
Yeah, for Human Tripwires, it really does come down to who was left alive when they get those retakes.
Yeah, that's one way
If
of putting
Lear
it.
is up, their chances of being able to walk away, even if they have the numbers advantage, just dwindle, it feels, exponentially, especially now that Lear has picked up that operator. I'm very much not surprised that we're seeing this come on through. He has the Blade Storm, so if this does pan out for the worst part, the HSDIRR, they will still have that ultimate to fall back onto in this next round. Meanwhile, the ARP, if it's successful in this round, can just win the series right here, right now, as Human Tripwires have opted for a full buy of their own.
The drone comes through, and that's a sound cue that Ale has picked up on from deep in cave. They perhaps don't expect to clear as far as he's positioned himself. Finally, he'll get spotted out and looks for a flash into the angle. Lear dealing with these players on the front lines, but eventually dropped. Worth his weight in gold, it seems, on every single site defense. But now that he's out of the picture, perhaps things are looking a little more favorable for Human Tripwires in this 3 versus 3. They have their man mounted in the form of Polvy, who's taken up this Reyna role brilliantly. Still firing, but the numbers do begin to dwindle. Vicious finds one onto Stanley. Great util combo with the double damage through the snakebite onto the shot dart. Fredden also getting an additional kill. Only Epps remaining. And cleared out entirely. HSDIRR take the round.
Vicious being alive still for HSDIRR is so important for this team because it forces Human Tripwires into playing around not just the Toxin Screen but also the snake bites.
Yeah.
And that denies a lot of that positioning space that Polvy is looking for. You actually see him dismiss to try and escape, and he dismisses straight into a snake bite and just has to keep moving. And that pushes him into the peripherals of Fredden.
We also saw as well Vicious hold on to that wall, not invest the Toxic Screen immediately on A to go for the standard retake wall you would expect, but he sits over towards B, has his utility there, and then can cut across the site and make it even better for them, like you said, pumping all of that util into Polvy's position. And now HSDIRR sit themselves on a potential series point after losing the first map in such dramatic fashion. They steadied the ship, as I said they're capable of doing, and that's what makes a top team. Now it's just a case of finding this last final round, as Ale has already cleaned out everything on the opposite end of the map, and all focus can be turned towards this A hit.
This is going to be a bear trap snapping shut on Human Tripwires if they're not too careful. So much time is passing, and HSDIRR, they know there is no movement on mid, there is no movement towards B. It has to be an A push. They can start to apply pressure. They can allow this team to take the site, and then they can immediately collapse in behind them if they play for that retake. But Toxin Screen's infested. Fish is just waiting to see if anyone peeks them through. Here's the sound cue. It's good for one. Polvy trades it out. However, Devo is down. One half of the duelist removed, the second falls, and this is HSDIRR singing an absolute victory tune as it is 3-2 Guiding Light going to be connecting, allowing the kill to be confirmed onto Apps. Lynxy takes out Eccles, and HSDIRR survive. They saw it all the way through into a 3-map series. It looked extremely close at the beginning of Breeze, especially when we got to see that just absolute tag team demolition duo of the Reyna and the Jet, but they're able to keep the duelists under wraps, and Lear has an absolute gargantuan stomping grounds of Breeze to play with that allows them to come in for the win. Finally, they can say that they were able to see off Human Tripwires tonight.
Yeah, it started off with a 13-2 on Haven, catching them by surprise with that setup that Human Tripwires have now led into. I asked what the identity would look like, and we have an idea now of how it is that they want to try and approach these games, with Devo and Polvi both leading the way. But you can lead, but you're not Lear. This guy is something else every single time. I said before the pre-game that the HSDIRR highlights package will most likely be comprised of mainly him, and it's the exact same when we look at the highlights that we have here for just this one map. He did it the whole series. Even when they looked downtrodden on Haven, he was there. But still have to come back and say this was a group effort. All of HSDIRR worked together to make this possible, to put him in the positions where he's able to have the most value. And yeah, they get it done. That is their argument now fully being made for being a top team, in the fact that they can see off an opponent, bringing in something a little bit new. And if you're Human Tripwires, it's unfortunate, not the birthday gift you would have wanted if you're Devo. And then also the fact as well now that they've somewhat shown their hand in what people expect from them, and if either of the teams they're playing from now on are any good at reading it, as HSDIRR have been this series, mid-series, despite what preparation might come in pre-game, there's still a lot of work to be done for them to get where they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, we saw, right, how important being able to counterpick and predict your opponent's strategy could be. And as you said, Human Tripwires have now tipped their hand on what they are likely to run, both on Breeze and on Pearl, two maps that we'd never before seen them on, as we can see. Rightfully so, MVP goes to Polvi for Human Tripwires, but Lear coming in with a whopping 364 ACS, 29 kills for the victorious Jet. Absolute mammoth numbers. And as you said, this is a team that identified the carry potential that Lear had and did everything in their power to boost him up. Whether it was Fredden coming in with those early kills on eco rounds to secure a rifle as quickly as possible into his hands, whether it was Vicious, Ale, or Lynxy working together to deny the angles for Polvi and Devo to play into, forcing them into a spider web that Lear was constantly spinning every single round of Breeze. The guy had absolutely every bit of utility on the team side pushed towards him, and my goodness, what a reward the team were able to find as a result.
Yeah, it's a player that has been gaining that experience step by step and is now finally getting the plaudits that he deserves, really. And may continue to hit those heights. We have an interview coming up. I'm not actually sure who it is, so we'll have to find out who exactly it is. It's Ale, so we get to speak to the man himself. We've seen the Twitch chat spam. Mr. LOL Ale W, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm honestly really impressed by the boys today. You know, coming back from a 1-0 stomp actually on Haven and just bringing it back. It was amazing.
Yeah, I guess that leads into the first question I was going to ask. It was such a one-sided affair on that first map. You guys have probably forgotten about it at this point in time because we have gone the distance. What did you do to really reset the mental, find a way back in? Or was it just a case of you weren't too shaken by what happened on that first map? It was just that they brought something you weren't expecting, and once you got down to some territory you felt more familiar with, it was just a case of bringing it home.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Haven for us was just like a warm-up map, or like a map we didn't expect to win at all. We just, if we won it, it would have been amazing. But it didn't really get to us so much. So we just reset for the Pearl game, and from there on, we just took it by our own hands.
Speaking of maps then, something that I think definitely surprised us, and I'm sure surprised you as a team, was the fact that Human Tripwires took you to 2 maps that we are yet to see them actually play this current split, both Pearl and Breeze. What impact did this have on the team and how you approached this series?
I think since Human Tripwires is a new team, with 2 new players, it was honestly surprising some stuff of what they did, and also the double duelist was a bit confusing at first. But I think we adapted really well and really used our util to our advantage, and delayed them a lot on both our sides, on T and CT.
Yeah, into that last map that we saw as well, the closest between you guys of what I said was 2 very dominant one-sided first couple of maps for you and for Human Tripwires. We had that timeout come towards the end of the game where, Human Tripwires are starting to close in on the gap, and then you guys found what was necessary to pull away. Was there anything that you really talked over? Anything important that stuck out to you at that point that needed to be changed?
I think something special that happened was the play me and Lear did on A there when I went in front of the box in cave. I think that play was, cooking up in the background, but it was really important that it happened right there and right now, and I think that made us win the game essentially. So, yeah.
So then, speaking of Lit, obviously one of these rising stars that the Jet is finally starting to get noticed. How is it really working and setting up a Jet as opposed to having to worry about a Chamber being a pseudo-duelist now that the meta has shifted away?
I think, for us it's really good. We struggled a lot against the Chamber meta since at the time we didn't have a Chamber player. So that didn't benefit us at all playing against Chambers. And now, having Lear on the team, who's an amazing player, he's just an amazing person as well. He just dominates with the Jet as well. So it's amazing having the Jet meta back and having Lear on it.
Yeah, it sounds a brilliant, man. Thanks once again for joining us for the interview. Congratulations on the win. Before I leave, I have to ask, where did lol LAW come from? I've seen it posted around a lot of times. The people want to know. I swear, did you just type Ale into GIFs and find the first thing that popped up? Or
Yes, so Fredon just typed Ale in GIFs on Discord, and the first thing was what popped up was Fortnite dancing Spider-Man saying lol LAW. So I don't know, that just became a meme somehow.
Yeah.
But I'm here for it,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
good.
The support for you guys in chat for every game, and even on the talent predictions from Kremer when no one believed he did. So you guys have certainly received the praise that you deserve. So once again, congratulations on your win this night, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much. I'll see you.
See you. What a guy, man. What a guy. Brilliant interview as well. Good to hear from him and that I wasn't crazy, and that's exactly where I thought the rumours had come from. But yeah, a brilliant performance. I want to say front to back, if we forget about Haven, to be fair. Going into Pearl and then Breeze at the end. Brilliant stuff from them. And unfortunate for Human Tripwires, they're just not quite able to get the job done. And now it's in an interesting situation where they've lost 2 on the bounce and need to try and find a way to hit that winning form.
Yeah, I think it really is probably going to hit them hard because they did so well on their maps, right? Haven looked so dominant, and a lot of the times on Breeze, you could argue that they should have won rounds. It was just these really big clutch plays coming out from Lee, who was able to find those kills and make the magic happen. And I mean, that is obviously one of the things that a strong team needs to have. The front man, the star power, and everyone to sort of use all of their resources to help that player push on up. And I think the problem for Human Tripwires is that they tried to split that between 2 players today. They didn't have one person that they were trying to push all of their resources onto. They had 2. And as a result, it split what they were able to use to help both the Jet and the Phoenix, and then the Reyna when we saw on that 3rd map. And you could see they had a lot less resources to work with as opposed to what Lear was getting from the rest of the team. They only really had each other to be able to help out for.
Yeah, it's almost like when you're completing a quest in a video game and you've got an NPC that follows you around. I mean, that sounds really disrespectful, right? But what the point I'm trying to make is if you have to be conscious of playing around another duelist in that situation, you're both trying to meet the same end in a sense. And it's not just having one sole player like Lear who has all the support around him to simply just go and frag. So it's almost caught in 2 minds as to who the face and what the identity of this team wants to be. Double duelist for them, it certainly can work, but it it's just going to take more repetitions. Like we said, the roster's had a lot of changes, and perhaps that is reflected in what the result ends up being. So now we can get a look at the standings, I believe, and see where this end of the play day, the second day of round 4, actually puts us in terms of the grand scheme of things. Coming into it, I don't think too many people could have said they thought it would have looked exactly like this. Apex on top, perhaps not much of a surprise, but from the games that we have seen today, HSDIRR and Focus both moving up in the world to join Le Petit Buffon on 3-1, and then no one really split down the middle. It's either you're doing a great job or things just aren't quite falling into place, and you've got that belt of Bonk, Vamonos and Human Tripwires who all find themselves in a similar boat.
I tell you what, if we get to see Lei on the form that he was today go up against Apex's Kiko, I'm going to be a very happy caster indeed, because that is going to be a duelist matchup for the ages. I know that Twiggy is under the firm belief that Kiko is the best duelist in the region, but Lei is coming for that crown. He may be up and coming, but he is definitely out to prove that he has what it takes to sit up right there at the top with everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of UK talent which seem to be thriving in the Nordics at this point in time. I think we were perhaps expecting it to be mainly, you know, the Danish and Swedish contingent that end up putting, you know, through the biggest results. But yeah, there's a real mixture of players in the region. Even Apex, you know, have a few players from different places as well. You know, there's a real mixture, but as a whole, I think as a region, it is just so incredibly strong. And that is reflected in these results, like I said, because you've got some teams that have so much potential but just aren't quite able to realize it just yet. Even Hookahs, for example, have still made Apex sweat, and they're sat at the complete opposite side of the leaderboard.
Polaris is always a surprise, but you know what else isn't a surprise? Our predictions! Because some of us were pretty right about today.
Actually,
I think both of us were pretty right about today, so do you know what? High five!
Yeah, high five. I'll try not to knock my camera off the tripod, but I'm actually pretty happy. The only real one that you can call to here in terms of me having said anything noteworthy would be the Human Tripwires HSDIRR result. I was still quite on the fence as to who to go with, but I don't think I've won a single 50-50 so far this split, so I might just adopt the Crema strategy, and even if I look outlandish in my predictions, it's not going to be so bad. But yeah, across the board, we've got Pavlos on the top spot, now up to 11 to have the sole Radiant crown. No one else able to sit on his throne for the time being, but we'll have to see how that develops. Maybe the Moxie Hazard JC comeback arc is on the cards.
Maybe, but I mean, unfortunately, what isn't on the cards is more matches for today. We got both of our curses out of the way, so we can tick that off the checklist. You got your 2-0, and I got my frame up. So
Look,
there we go. We met in the middle. We got the best of both worlds.
We certainly did. And there wasn't any singing either. No best of both worlds coming from me, and no happy birthday either. So yeah, we can close that one out. But before we go, make sure to check out all of the socials here for the Challengers League Northern Europe Polaris. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. I wonder how many people... I see all of the talent say this as it pops up. Who actually is using Facebook this day and age?
Not me.
Yeah, not me either. Look, maybe I'll make an Alir fan account on Facebook and be posting relentlessly in the replies of the Val League NE account. But yeah, that is it. Val League _NE for every single one of those socials. So that is it from us. That's it from me. That's it from Moxie. Until next time, we will be back on Saturday at 5:30. Same time. Well, not same time. Same place at the very least, right? You get the picture. We'll see you all then. Good night.